Hello. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So, is my internet clear, consistent?
Seems like it.
All right.
I'm going to invite some folks. Hey, Elizabeth. Why isn't it letting me?
I literally am on TikTok dealing with, not TikTok, on Facebook, because I got multiple platforms, dealing with a person who is melting down over the idea that segregation happened in the United States of America and there weren't U.S. soldiers who fought segregation. They
Ugh.
supported they supported segregation. I think this is why I wanted to have the live, especially this live in the subject matter, especially after what we did last week. Of I don't get what what mindset our European American friends and family are in at the present moment, in that they can see what's going on and still feel impotent to do anything in response to the injustice and evil that they see happen. Elizabeth, Carolyn, Marie, how is everyone today? How is everyone today? Oh my God! What do you mean? How is everyone today? We're 42 days into the second Trump administration, and it's an open white supremacy. I don't even understand that question unless you are in a high level of delusion. Like I know why European Americans are losing their shit, but it seems to be that they're losing their shit over the wrong thing. Am I right?
Facts.
I'm wrong.
Facts. 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 They're
And to
more
me,
worried
that's why.
about the way they appear versus what they're actually doing.
Even when it comes down to how they're feeling, they're not talking about that. They're literally not saying, one, I am scared that my black, brown, indigenous persons of color, my friends, my people I think are friends, are, can't tell me apart from a white supremacist, and this sucks. They're not even saying that. This person, I spend every day trying not to crash out. I'm trying to hold it together. You should be crashing out.
Yeah, it's completely justified. It's a mess over here.
Right.
Hey,
I
Chris.
mean, what's up, Chris?
I trying to get my green screen up. Give me 1 second. Yeah, well, okay.
Okay, so I may have to say this a couple of times. For those who are starting to pay attention, thanks to the TikTok algorithm, this is the Eager account. I know you see my brown face. However, this is the Eager account. And here on this account, we are helping our European American friends and family deconstruct what it feels like to be white under an open white supremacy called, what's up, bro, man? Called the Trump administration. Okay. Last week, we had a number of Black content creators, and there was a lot of um, fighting, and it was good, phenomenal information. But what we
Fantastic.
found out is that many come to watch white people get beat up. When it comes down to white people literally creating a space where they can see anti racist white people struggling with what's going on right now, that's when I learned, because I'm a black man having a black experience in the United States of America. I'm not having the European American experience. I've never been a white man, white woman, white child, or white queer. nor will I ever be a white man, white woman, white child, or white queer. What I learned is that many European Americans are crashing up against the idea that they have no control over public opinion and they are seen as white before any and everything else. And they don't know how to deal with that because they're used to receiving deference. Now, some people, after watching what happened between Zelensky and Mr. Trump, they see it as no, Mr. Trump and them want submission. And I'm like, to a segregationist, they are the same word. Being nice to white people is what white people receive no matter what. And my viewpoint is supposed to be received by black, brown, indigenous persons of color as valid, even though it's coming from this space that is completely protected from negative emotions. Okay? So the question, oh my God, that we're going to start with, and we're going to see if we can start with this. My God, is what is the content of European America's character? And I want to ask the question as a setup is, have you guys seen the Kevin on stage presentation of the white women preparing for a wedding and they're dancing to They Are Not Like Us like they did
Is
in
that
the
what that was?
NFL? Yeah, that's what that was.
It looked like zombies.
OMG, OMG, OMG. So did you guys see it? Bjorn and Ed, did you see it? Gotcha. So here's my question. What is preventing European Americans from viewing themselves as the open oppressors? Like, why was that not seen as an act of oppression, an act of colonizing? That's where my question is like, what's going on that where European Americans don't see themselves as white?
Oh, okay, Josh, thank you. What do you guys got to say?
The person in the comment section that's saying, what is this guy talking about? And they're crashing against the idea that right now, that, wait a minute, I'm not an oppressor unless I agree that I am an oppressor. And if you talk to me or treat me as if I'm an oppressor, then there's something wrong with you, not something wrong with me.
Right.
So what's going on?
Because dealing with that idea is painful. That you occupy the oppressor class and that you're in the same category of people like Trump and Elon Musk. And you know that you don't act like that necessarily in your daily life, but you can't help it because it's part of who you are. It's painful.
Well, I think there's this thing. Hi, everyone. My name's Ed, in case you aren't aware. What I believe is that people are raised believing that they're connected to and supporting the hero, right? The good guy. And this complexion has been taught that no matter where they are the good guy. Excuse me. No matter where I am the good guy. And to break through that facade requires a very traumatic experience that people of my complexion and presentation resist and avoid at all costs. They cling to and defend their right to be ignorant of factual information.
Josh makes a point here. He says, unwilling to be forced to participate hurts when we buy into the mindset of hyper individualism where everything is about personal choice. That makes sense.
Bjorn, Bjorn,
Oh,
Yep.
there you go. Same, huh?
I've been trying to think about the question pretty hard. Like, why wouldn't they see that as an act of oppression? Like, why do they feel like, why don't they see the power dynamics in it? You know, like, why are white people so, I mean, it's a big question. Like, why are white people so blind to the power dynamics in play in American culture? Like, why do they not see that they are the people that are not like not like us, you know? I think there is something to the main character syndrome where everybody's taught that they are a main character and therefore they are always good. I know that I see a lot of people that have a hard time with boundaries and stuff because they feel like if they can understand somebody, then that position is like justified. They have a hard time like seeing like, oh, if I can empathize with you, then you must, you know, or if I can sympathize with you, you must be good because I'm good. And so they have a hard time like seeing these power dynamics of people harming and people doing good. I remember I first saw that first with like the Marvel Loki and stuff. Like he's doing bad things, but everybody wanted to be on his side because they could understand where he was coming from. And I feel like white people do that in a weird sense with other white people, you know? Like they see the oppression and stuff and they're like, oh, I can to some extent understand like that experience and therefore it's a good experience because I'm a good person. I understand it. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it makes a lot of sense, but only inside of the culture of hyper individualism. Because if you can listen to where I'm coming from and regurgitate to me back where I'm coming from, that means you've accepted where I'm coming from and therefore it's valid.
mm-hmm.
And the idea that the oppressor, Thomas Jefferson, does not have any valid arguments as to why he's acting like a slave master means he's evil. And just because he can justify his evil, now you're in a supreme mindfuck because that means you can't get out of being perceived and now treated as if you're evil.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like the whole Momnibus idea, okay, where we're like labor delivery units, the actual nurses and midwives and labor doctors who are white, by literally virtue of them being white, cannot see Black people as human beings, and Black women were dying in their care. Not intentionally, but because of them being white, they don't see Black people as human. And then Black children, 1 out of 3 Black babies, newborn babies were dying. Like that white woman who was breaking newborn, said, no, it wasn't just Black boys, it was all boys. That's just as evil.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you took it out of race doesn't change it from being evil, right? And I think it's that aspect of it where now public opinion is, no, you don't have any character. I mean, you don't have any individuality anymore. In fact, you arguing that you're an individual means now we see you even more entrenched in white supremacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so it's like, seems to me that it's a glorified mindfuck, and it's Lovecraftian at the level because so many white people, like Dr. James P. Comer, PhD, wrote in his book, and Chris has the book and everything. White people need racism. Like they can't function outside of the racial caste system because the racial caste system gives them that justification to feel I'm not hurting you intentionally.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. What's up, Chaz? That's what I think they're crashing up against. And so then how does that feel? Because when I saw a couple of people, we sent the lives to a couple of other therapists, and that was the main thing is one person said that about 20 minutes into the live last time, he wanted to bring out a feelings chart in order to give the people on the panel, tell me how you're feeling. Don't intellectualize what's going on because we can name it. That's what we're taught to do. So now we're practicing white supremacy, trying to fight white supremacy with the tenets of white supremacy. How does it feel to know that every time Trump does something, you are seen in the public sphere and at the national conversation as actively participating in it because there doesn't appear to be any resistance to it? Like European Americans aren't even putting up as much resistance as Zelensky put up. What's up, Beth? No, Amy. That's Amy there. Hi. What's up, Amy?
Sorry. Hi. I realized I should turn on my camera because I realized everyone had theirs on. I was invited up. I was just, I'm mostly just listening now because I wasn't sure why I was invited. But I really appreciate you having this conversation. And when you, just now when you asked, how does it feel? When you said, God, I kind of lost it. It was we can't exist outside of the framework of racism as European Americans, and it made me think about the grief that we're not dealing with because the second we're not in this dynamic, we don't have you. We're not in this. We're not willingly in the same dynamic with each other, and if we don't have some kind of grasp on power or something historically, we don't have an authentic relationship with you, and that means we lose you, and we're not prepared for what life is like without this dynamic. And I don't know that the grief of that and the destabilization of that as a white person is something that either I can articulate because I'm clearly not doing a very good job right now, or that I feel like I'm talking about with anybody else, or that I hear talked about. Does anyone know what I'm kind of saying here? Because I talked around it a little bit, but the grief of how do you, like the people we have locked in a dynamic to stay with us through power. Once we no longer have that, we will no longer have you at all. And I don't think we know how to exist without the power and the racism.
That's Dr. James P. Comer.
Oh,
That's
is it?
what he
Oh,
said.
okay.
If I can, real quick, Amy, this is a space where we are talking about it out loud in order to get to the root of it. So there's no misrepresentation. There's no false or wrong answer, right? I'm programmed to hesitate to answer unless I have the right answer, right? And my presence and participation here is to clarify my understanding. And in order for me to do that, I have to talk out loud with other people that are trying to find that also.
Yeah.
So I recognize what you're saying, but I also want you to know you're doing the work right now.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how much you know, Amy, about Eager itself. Eager is a group of European Americans that are deconstructing white supremacy together. We have groups in Signal where we talk about different things. And the thing that we're finding is that we're not bringing it out into the open to talk about it. So this space allows us to talk about it in the open for the people that are brave enough to do so. So that's why I invited you, because you spoke last time in the comments and I wanted to hear what you had to say.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is sort of I hadn't heard of you or seen you before, but I came up because I follow Royal Star and I like that. I mean, we need that space. We're not as used to articulating as honestly. I think we're pretty used to articulating the the surface level or the party line or the what I'm supposed to say, but the dam breaks. The door entirely opens when you can just say, "Oh yeah, actually, I am racist. Actually, because that's my inheritance, and that's what what I've become, and what has what I've been swimming in." And once you can say that and do that, it's like, oh well, okay, let me actually address this other stuff that sits around in my head that I'm unknowingly doing. And in places where you want to talk about it, you're also hurting other people by saying it. So having places where we're not hurting other people while we talk about it, I think
Yes.
is really key, because so often a conversation comes up and then you just think you can enact all your whiteness on whatever conversation you're in. And so I tend to just try to kind of not, because I know how much I can hurt people that I do care about, even if it's a complicated sense of caring because of our entire histories. It doesn't mean I don't care. And so I hesitate because I know I'm an enormous weapon. So I just kind of hang back a whole lot now. So I appreciate this
Dan's
space.
mentioned something about that before too last time. Holding back because you don't want to hurt somebody and you know that you're going to,
Yeah, and I to the extent I don't remember who it was, but I may need to apologize for how I came in the first time. I walked in, because I follow you, I follow Star, and I walked in and I saw, several black faces and several white faces, and one of them crying, and I'm like, this is not the place for that. Oh my gosh, like, hey, maybe some other place. Don't do that, because I saw 3 black people, and I'm like, hey, we don't do that. But then it became clear that I was wrong about that was
Yeah.
an opening you'd given, and like people were allowing it. So she isn't around anymore, but I was wrong to say that, and I too quickly came in and saw,
Well, you didn't know.
yeah,
You didn't know.
like, don't cry about your process when there's a black woman trying to talk to you. Please don't do that. But I should shut my mouth longer in a space, and of
Well,
course that's obvious.
we were still feeling out what we were doing in this space too, like how we were going to make it happen. So that's part of the reason why you were confused, because it wasn't working out the way we had intended to begin with. So
I see.
even though everything that was said is great and we learned a lot, and lots of great information was given, it was still not the intention of what was supposed to be happening. So
I see.
Right. So I think what you've been saying right now is absolute what's going on. That European Americans are waking up to the idea, especially since Black people have chosen to back up after the election, that holy shit, I don't know who I am when Black people aren't present. I know myself through contrast alone. Okay? And if I don't have that contrast, then all I have is fear of other white body people. And I don't know what to do with that fear, because I believe that fear is legit. Because as you guys were saying earlier, last live, every time I've tried to depend on a white person, they treated me like I was a Black person.
Oh.
And so now people are coming on. I'm so grateful for these conversations. Right. And that's a consultation for me. Consultation for me. Because it's like everything has to be capitalism. If it isn't a part of the marketplace, if it isn't on the grocery store shelf, our European American friends and family sincerely don't believe it exists. They will not allow themselves to actually have a conversation or allow themselves to have a thought that isn't being expressed in the marketplace of ideas for them to consume. It has to be commodified and put into a product. Yes, I heard you say that. I agree with that idea. Okay, now, what are we going to do? What do you mean we? What are you going to do? Because according to Dr. Paulo Freire, if you are not being inspired to act, then you are being trained to follow and obey.
thanks.
So then what is going on inside of the white nervous systems to where they still feel impotent after a conversation and don't believe that they, and this is what Dr. Josh was pointing towards, of you got to have the shared vulnerability in order to move forward, but both sides are saying, okay, you be vulnerable first, and then, because as soon as you become vulnerable, then that gives me an opportunity to hurt you, and I don't want to be hurt by you. So how do you do the shared vulnerability at the same time? Because that's what we saw in the Oval Office. Trump refused to, Zelensky was being vulnerable until Trump refused to reciprocate. Then it turned into a fight.
Sorry.
So what is the content of the character? Because that's the question. And right now, there doesn't seem to be any substance.
At all, other than continued colonization and oppression.
Then they go, is it possible for those who are not speaking to mute? And I'm going to say no. I don't want to collude in my own oppression. I don't want to practice white supremacy here. Please, it is better for me to hear your grunts, your groans, the different, you being human, there being background noise, there being things happening, than not. Because again, now we're commodifying our lived experience. Please, let's break out of this. So thank you for the baby crying in the background.
Can you say more about the word commodification, commodifying it in what you just said? I think of that as money, but I don't feel like you're saying that.
No, what we do is we follow capitalism, and then just because of reality TV and what we've done on social media with TikTok, because TikTok was supposed to help us get away from the commodification. Part of the reason why TikTok took off was because we could authentically see the person as the person, as messy as they were, not polished, not practicing the speech over and over again, to where we like, you know what? I feel like I know you. The parasocial relationship, I know you now. Okay? So what we end up doing is now practicing perfectionism, and our lives have to be on social media a way that's prepackaged so that other people can consume it without judging me. No, that was the whole thing in TikTok. People were judging you, and you did reaction videos to their judgment and then said, why are you judging me? You acting like you don't fart. You know you fart. Your fart stinks. Stop.
Thank you.
So that's where we're at. Because right now,
Dark psychology. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Dark psychology says going on mute feels like professionalism rather than relational.
Because that's what we do in Zoom meetings at work. So that me, the leader, you can hear me like this is a classroom, and I want everybody to hear my words. And if you don't hear my words, there's something wrong with you guys. Act right.
Fem on Fire says being afraid to get it wrong is harmful? ? Yeah, because then you're in the white supremacy characteristics. You know, you're performing, as he said, instead of being human.
You're editing.
Everybody makes mistakes. Yeah. Everybody gets it wrong. Everybody's harmful sometimes.
And that's the thing, right? And that's where I started earlier, referenced earlier, is that it's a fear of being wrong as a result of being criticized and ridiculed in my experience of having expressed misinformation or misunderstood information, trying to offer input and being incorrect, and then being reprimanded for being incorrect, right? That's counterproductive, right? That is silencing, that's suppressing voices as people are trying to sort through their understanding and come to what they believe is, what Royal Star is trying to get us to drill down in is the content of our character. And and my perception of this is, in the absence of the context of racism, people that look and present like me have not fully identified what their character is. And so without a clear definition of understanding what my personal boundaries, morals, things along these, integrity, if I don't have a clear, specific understanding of these things, then I truly don't have any meaningful content of character.
So Shosana says it's hard to be wrong because people are vicious with their corrections, like they pounce. Royal Star mentioned this last time. European Americans are very brutal with each other.
But why is there fear? Why is there fear? Why do you have more fear regarding making a mistake than you do the consequences of you never speaking up? Because the consequences of you never speaking up can result in a life being deducted. You make mistakes all through life in order to get to where you were. At one point, you were a baby that made mistakes in learning to crawl, learning to walk, and then we're learning to run. You didn't have any fear then. Why do you have fear now?
I know why. I mean, I can't speak widely, but I feel like I know why. We don't have that. The function of community that we miss is that forgiveness. Is that, like, I still like you even when you did something wrong, or you're still around.
We abandon
if I
each
had to
other.
correct you. If I have to correct you, I'm still gonna like you tomorrow, even though you were wrong now, and I'm gonna correct you. Community is where Black people are, and when we're left to ourselves, and maybe not only Black people, but when white people are just left to ourselves, we don't have anything that is cohesive for us. Or I don't feel like there is. I didn't even know I was white for much of my life, until I had to learn those things. We're not, like, I don't look at these other people and think, oh, just, my people. Like, that's not how I was raised. You could be anybody is the idea. And so when I see other people having that, watching on TikTok, Black community conversations where people have to call out and then it's like, hey, but we're still family. I'm looking at that with my jaw dropping. I don't have any of that, right? And so making a mistake is not something we're as used to, where, like, hey, if I say something super terrible right now, I'm probably out of this community as far as I know. Like, like maybe just knee-jerk thinking that's probably going to happen. And so, like, it's risky in this way that, like, none of us are an inherent family just because we're white, or inherently want to, like, embrace each other or maybe help just because we're white. Just white is just this invisible default to a white person's conditioning. That, like, I don't know any of y'all, and, like, I look sometimes with jealousy at when people can have a look at each other and have a shared, at least, understanding that there's some common experience. I feel like Black people can look at each other and go, like, maybe I don't know you, but I know there's something in common here. We have some shared experience. I don't look at anybody else and know that. Maybe women, but, and so, like, this forgiveness piece of make a mistake and it'll be okay. Is it going to be? I don't know. I better try to my absolute best all the time, because I don't know for sure that it's going to be okay. And that's not a conscious thought. Like, I'm not really thinking it, because I think you people would be quite nice to me. But, like, subconsciously, where we're actually acting, there's no community.
I have a question.
Go with me on this real quick. Because people always talk about losing a sense of connection and having a fear of making a mistake when it comes to racially based conversations. But mistakes are not vilified in any other scope. If someone breaks off communication because you made a mistake in any other realm, you kind of shuck it off and go on. There are many people that you have come in contact with in your life that you have made a mistake around, regarding, that cut you off. And you may have sat on it for a little bit, but you moved forward. I want everybody to really think why you fear the mistakes when you finally start to deconstruct, when you didn't fear the mistakes before. You're not going to start making mistakes because you deconstructed. You've been making mistakes. You will continue to make mistakes and say, well, there's harm in it. in making the mistake, and there's harm in not making the mistake. There's harm in speaking and harm in not speaking. There's harm and mistakes in every aspect of life. But why harp on mistakes in the realm of racism? It is better to make a misstep and be corrected and learn from that misstep in this arena than sitting back and being fearful and never doing anything.
I feel like when you said I'm not afraid to, or that we're not afraid to make mistakes in other realms outside of racism, I, I, I'm willing to change what I think based on what you're saying, but I don't feel like that's true. I feel like that we would eject each other for absolutely any kind of mistake as white people. It's like that one did that, bye. So there's just a culture of, like we're all replaceable and temporary and non.
I'm saying the gravity. You seem to feel it more and care more in the realm of a racial conversation than any other aspect of life. Because let's not forget, we're in the age of no contact and low contact. Which means somebody made a mistake or you made a mistake and distance was put in between for the sake of a lesson that somebody had to learn on their own. There's no fear in that, really. It's okay, I need this for my peace. Why can't it be, I need to make this mistake and I need to be okay with making a mistake for the greater peace?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
And with that, because as I was watching, perfectionism was brought up. And nobody has to answer out loud. For those that don't know me, I ask a lot of questions. They're not meant to be answered right now. They're meant more for you to sit on and add on to. Do you think, perhaps, that the perfectionism that drives white supremacy is basing and building your biases and the road of your deconstruction? And that's why you're having a hard time with not wanting to make a mistake.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So I want to, because I just saw a comment that's right in alignment with this that just blows my mind. And I would like to know, like, how does it resonate? Because we're going to still talk about feelings. Okay. Feelings. And you may need to write down a lot of what Taz says as questions and receive them for how Queen Taz is presenting them. These are journal prompts. They're not necessarily for you to answer right here and right now during this live. Okay? But I'm like...
And quick note, if you miss any of them, I do take all of these prompts and stick them over on my Substack. So if you miss them, don't feel bad. And don't feel bad for contacting me afterwards and asking me to repeat them. I have no problem doing that. Do not think that you are inconveniencing me in any way. I will make the time. I promise you that.
Right. So a person comes on and says they're having a fear and they're worried about change of making mistakes because some of our family members are gun-toting hoarders in my case. And here's oh my God. And because this to me is right in alignment with the content of character and what we're trying to have you guys talk about. How do our European American friends and family psychologically acknowledge that about their family members, but don't see that they themselves are just as violent as their own family members? I mean, it's the metaphysical mirror of we get it when like Taz is saying, other elements of your life. If you're trying to find a romantic partner, okay, and you like bisexual women, at some point we got to look at you and say, so you're bisexual too? And that's when the man wants to like start hitting on you. And that's when I say hitting on you, I mean like physically hitting on you. And that's when, you got to look at him like, I'm 240 pounds. I wish you would. But it's that hard conversation of you cannot grow up in a system and you be the oppressor without the blind spots of the oppressor. So how does that feel? Because Amy blew my mind when she said, I didn't know I was white until recently, because I can be anybody. How does that feel?
Even when we do decide to change, we're still in that same position. We're stuck here, you know?
That's what it feels like.
Well,
Yeah. It feels
my experience is something that I've experienced in this journey is my resistance to look inward, right? And once I recognized that, I had to break that down and understand why, right? And there's this thing about me, the way I'm biologically built, is that I'm designed to look for threats outward, right? I'm not designed inherently to look inward for my contribution to whatever struggles, right? I have to be led to that understanding and that clarity. I can't come to that on my own because I am designed to look for threats outward, not inward. So I don't inherently recognize my personal contribution without consistent introspection. Where am I? What have I said? What has my behavior been? What is my personal history? And that begins to reveal to me the patterns that I've witnessed, that I've participated in, that I've been exposed to, and the patterns that I've also supported. And without that introspection, I'm unable to recognize any of that.
So, drag worker says that it feels scary dealing with those violent thoughts and impulses.
I think it feels, I mean, the messages that at least I've internalized about whiteness throughout life had been that it's a lack of, it's not an ethnicity, it's not a race, it's not a thing, it's an absence of. Whether it was said that way or just kind of, it's acted out, and that's why, or I don't know if that's why, but it feels like it might be why there's all this adoption of appropriation and stealing of everybody else's cultures and stuff and slang and everything else, because there's this vacuum of whiteness. But I've come to see that that's not correct, but I know that that's what I've been given. I don't believe it currently. And so the dissonance there, when you ask how does it feel, it's sort of like, well, at first it's like you assigned me whiteness. I don't want to be white. I didn't say I had nothing to do. I don't want to, and you have to reconcile with the dissonance between what you've been told you are, which is not only a thing, but it's also not a thing. You don't get a thing. You don't have an ethnicity. Everybody else has ethnic food. Like, what is that? What is that supposed to mean? That's the phrase. What is that? You're nothing. And now you're actually quite something. Being white is actually an actual thing that I actually am. And adopting it, seeing it, knowing it, owning it for all of that it means and has done to people that I've done. It's like, it's a lot of, it's like filling a vacuum rather than just kind of giving it more depth. It's like, it wasn't here at all before. And now it's here and it's not good. And so this rejection of like, well, I don't want to be it. I didn't agree to this. Like I just live in a life, like there's so much artifice, so much lie that like, I understand the word deconstruction. Whereas before it almost felt like there isn't a thing here to deconstruct. It's like, no, there's there's an entire thing and everybody else knows it but you. Everybody else can see all of this and like you're the one that needs so.
Courtney says it feels shameful. Underneath the fear is shame.
It appears that deconstructing for far too many people, once you've deconstructed and you realize you have an empty lot, you're not rebuilding from yourself and reconnecting with your actual heritage. You're still holding on to whiteness. You're just taking marginalized bricks and reconstructing. And I think that's where the fear and the shame comes from. Because you do have ethnic foods and ethnic cultures and ethnic traditions. You're not reconnecting with them. And on your deconstruction journey, once you remove all of the bricks from the umbrella that is whiteness, you need to reconnect connect so you can construct what is meant for you before you can have apathy and understanding of the marginalized. And I think far too many people are skipping that step. So you're feeling in a void because you're not connecting with the community that already exists for you. Your community isn't whiteness, your community is Germanness. It's Swedish, it's Italian, it's Norwegian. But you're missing that because you're running from everything that is pale. And that's not the goal. Because you can't keep running around looking for identity everywhere that you're not meant to be. So I think the first thing everyone needs to ask themselves, after I deconstruct, what does rebuilding mean?
Shoshana has said a couple of things here. I just want to read them and address it real quick. She says that you can't reconnect to a heritage because we weren't born there. There will be white people telling you can't do that either. And I would challenge that. That's your ethnicity, whether people like it or not. That's our family. And why are we looking for white people to justify that?
Well, not only that, why keep searching for excuses? You're looking to another white person. I just said, distance yourself from whiteness and connect with your ethnicity, your culture. A lot of people, a lot of cultures have been consumed by the umbrella of whiteness, and they've had their ethnic backgrounds, their melanin bred out of them. And I'm going to be blunt about it. Yes, literally bred out of them. Where they started mating purposefully, intensely with those from the Eurosphere in order to look more like the complexion for protection. Don't seek out the white person. Reconnect with your ethnicity. Your ethnicity is not a living, breathing person, but it is a living, breathing entity. Connect with your actual ancestors and what their intent for society was. You say every day, online and offline, that you are your own person and nobody can control you. But when it comes to race, you control yourself more than anyone or anything else. And there are a whole bunch of excuses as to why you cannot do the work to completion. There is no reason to start a race that you're not going to finish.
Teach.
So if you're going to
that
start
goes back to what
deconstructing, why deconstruct the entire structure and leave an empty lot? Where will you reside? What will keep you warm? Where will you receive your sustenance from? Because right now it's individually about you that I'm talking about, because you must nourish yourself. You must exercise yourself before you get into the fight. You are in your rocky moment. Climb the steps and make it to the top. But if all you have are excuses, then you're showing you are more comfortable with your white leverage than you will ever be with equity. And you have to ask yourself, why?
I find the word leverage that we're using, we keep shifting it a little bit. And I know why we're shifting it. We're shifting it to try and get our European American friends and family to participate. Because it's white racial violence. That's the only reason why we're having this conversation or trying to or help you guys in any way, shape, or form. Otherwise, we'd be gone. We wouldn't be here. We'd do like Minister Malcolm X and be gone. Gone. Why would we?
I think we really have a problem with seeking validation outside ourselves.
But that's the whole
If
point.
I may, I'd like to share some of my personal experience. Right, I have been raised as a white man. My heritage is Irish and Portuguese. Okay, and when I started on this journey, my sister lives in Europe, and she went to visit the Azores. And she said that she met many people with our last name, but she wasn't able to find where our origination was. And and she said that our name in Portuguese is very similar to Smith in English. It's so, it's so everywhere. And I didn't really understand that, so I began looking back into our name in Portugal. And this is all connected to white guilt and white shame, right? Because I bear an amount of responsibility around this. And when I looked into our family name, it turned out that my family name was one of the first two people recognized by the Portuguese monarchy in 1440 to be traders. So my heritage literally goes back to the very beginning. And when I made myself aware of that, it was a very painful. It was a very painful experience to know that the reason my family name is so diluted is that my family name is directly and specifically connected to the pursuit of capitalism based on purchase and sale of human beings. And I've had to do a lot of work around that, right? Because of this white guilt and white shame in trying to connect with my heritage and understanding how deeply entwined into all of this it is. But I've also learned how not to take responsibility for all of those things that I was not included in, right? All of those decisions and actions and results that I was not part of, but am the recipient of, right? And I'm continuing to do a lot of work around that because I have to separate my responsibilities, right? I'm not responsible for what was done before I was alive, but I am responsible for what I do while I'm here. And that's where I'm beginning to be able to separate from my guilt, my white guilt and my white shame. Is owning this responsibility of my family's specific participation in all of this.
Are there people that in your life that you have conversations with about this? Meaning that when you're at work and they're about to practice white supremacy, do you step up and start talking about how it makes you feel?
I have only called. I haven't divulged that information in my immediate circle, other than to very specific people. I do call out racism, but I don't reveal that information about myself around it.
Right. So I'm going to do a corollary question. When you are making a counter suggestion, they're about to engage in harm, they're about to engage in a public policy at work, they're about to do something in the personal world, do you call them in to practicing justice rather than calling them out into guilt and shame, which you're attempting to manage yourself?
My initial approach was the guilt and shame approach. Embarrassment, ridicule, criticism. That was my initial approach. I've since changed my approach, right? I've since tried to draw people's attention to what that is in order to broaden understanding rather than build defensiveness, right? I'm moving toward a more educational posture than critical? No, not critical.
No, I hear what you're saying. And I just want to remind that Paulo Freire says now, the difference between training and education is that in education, the individual is led to act. They're inspired to act, to change their behavior. Okay? And otherwise, we're colluding in our own oppression. We're commodifying life. Okay? So thank you for what you're doing. And then it seems like the next step is to offer them a way out to where they don't have to engage in the oppressive act. Now, you may have to sit there and start processing with them, like, I don't initially know what to do right now. Let's brainstorm. You may have to help them go into the growth mindset, okay? Like, and you demonstrate that you're going into the growth mindset too. This doesn't feel right, and I want to do something that does feel equitable. I do want to do something that does feel like a win-win situation. I don't want to hurt this person. It feels like we're hurting this person. I don't want to hurt myself. Likewise, I don't want to hurt myself either. I don't want to hurt you. What can we do to think about to where everybody wins? And that's new. It seems to me that that's absolutely new when it comes down to European Americans. I'm going to work from the premise because I keep seeing the European Americans just absolutely desperate with there not being the character being associated with harm and aggression. So what they want to do is stop the person who's being aggressive by being more aggressive than that person, which means that we're trying to use racism to stop racism. Okay? In the last class that I conducted in Florida, the jewel I tried to drop on people was that revolution also looks like increasing skill sets. It doesn't look like harming the person in front of you to stop them from doing the oppressive act. I gotta hurt you to stop you because you're inherently evil. You're working from the premise that the person who's racist is inherently evil, even though everybody in this group is basically, I don't want to be white. I don't want to be associated with harm. I don't want to be associated with aggression. There doesn't seem to be anything there but aggression and harm. I don't want to have anything to do with that. I can't go back to Europe. Why? Because I associate them with aggression and harm. That's literally what you're saying. So that's back to now Taz saying, now you cleared the house, but you're still on concrete, which is aggression and harm. Not grass, not loam, not a garden. You're trying to be the rose that grew out of concrete when the rest of us are saying, we don't have to live in a concrete jungle. Hello, Bob. Get out of my head right now, Bob. I don't need the help.
Quick question, because I often hear Euro-Americans say that they're not responsible for what their ancestors did. Now, regardless of if you have a spirituality that you practice or not, most cultures have an age. From birth until that age, whatever happens, it lays upon the lap and the responsibility of your parents. They take responsibility for any missteps, anything that happens. After that age, it is determined that now you are responsible for yourself and to make changes. So if you're going to say that you're not responsible for what your ancestors did, why have you not dismantled what your ancestors did?
Oh,
Because until that happened, yes, you are.
Yeah, because we're participating in it still.
Now, I also want to give you some food for thought. A lot of people, when starting, or they could be deep into their deconstruction journey, I want you to step away from the mindset of no one today was, or no one today is, someone today has. This is why we still have the systems that we have. The systems have not changed. They have not been broken down, nor have they been rebuilt. It has happened. It will continue to happen until we make this system like Jericho and bring the walls tumbling down. There's a lot of separation and individualism, and you notice it amongst who is walking around living today, and you don't realize that you're trying to individualize and separate yourself from those that came before you to make the road more comfortable and clear it out for you. If you're going to continue to walk that road and you're going to continue to be comfortable in the house that was built for you, you are still your ancestors.
teach.
It may be uncomfortable to learn that and to acknowledge it, but you have to. It's no different than you cannot move forward and make correction until you admit what you have done wrong. And the biggest thing you have to do is admit, I am my ancestor. Now that you've done that, what are you going to do about that? How are you going to remedy that? What is going to be your contribution to the vaccine for society?
It could start with, and you see it modeled by VIX, when someone does a comment or someone does a reaction video, I can see that you're in pain. You'd be surprised that in real life, when you say that to somebody in real life, why and how they start crying. I see you don't want to be associated with harm and aggression. I see how right now in Ohio University, they are divesting themselves from DEI because the staff are scared that they are going to be obliterated. The fear is real. When is that going to be a part of an editorial? When is that going to be a part of the local conversation? When are you guys going to start saying that at the coffee shop? I can understand why the chancellor said that, because the chancellor wants to keep his job. And if we don't support the chancellor feels like they're going to lose their $100,000 a year job, and they've got some responsibilities, and they love the people that they have, and they want to be able to provide for them. And in our society, it takes currency, and they want to keep their job. So I'm watching them participate in evil, just like I watched my ancestors participate in evil under segregation, wondering why someone didn't come and rescue the chancellor. Where are the rich white people who will rescue the chancellor? You go to the rich white people, they're like, how come somebody never asked me? I can't do something that's out of consent, that's not in consent. That's oppression too. I don't want to be a white savior. Why didn't the chancellor come and ask me for the money? I would have readily given it to him. Literally, if you're someone like me, a community organizer, and you go around and have these individual conversations, each white person in their silo are like, why isn't their community not recognizing that their community is being expressed in them being scared of each other?
And also, why is consent only so important about change? Because no Euro-American respected consent when it was about forcing the marginalized to keep Euro-Americans alive and forcing the marginalized to prosper for the sake of Euro-Americans. When it's time for change, why do you sit back to wait for consent? Why do you sit back and wait for somebody to tell you you can join the conversation? Because for a while, on this app in particular, there was a trend going on saying, if you're a black person, just wait. There's always a white person in your business. But when we need you to be there and show up and yield your whiteness as the weapon that it is, because we know that it is, you don't. All of a sudden, I didn't have your consent. You didn't have my consent to steal my ancestors and force them to come over here. You don't have my consent while right now you are moving the bodies of hundreds of my black ancestors from one of the largest plantations of the South for the sake of capitalism. You didn't have my consent when you wore my culture as a costume. You didn't have my consent when you made me, a black woman, a caricature. So why do you need my consent to finally be the savior you've been having wet dreams about since you knew how to spell your name?
Taz, and this is, you're right, they're asking consent of each other. And I get it. Even though it's wrong, they're so terrified of violence from each other and knowing each other is violent that I need you to come to me and make the ask. Even
And
though
the
they're
funny
rich.
thing about it is,
That's crazy.
you
It's
fear
insane.
physical violence from a weapon. The violence that is easier to recover from. The violence that is easier to cover up. But you don't fear the violence that pushes trauma into DNA. Let me repeat that. You don't fear the violence that pushes trauma into DNA. Because you chemically change the DNA of the marginalized in this country, and you don't fear that. You fear someone taking a weapon and pointing it at you, but you miss the part that the weapons that come out of your mouth, you can't put a band-aid over. You can't stitch up. You can't cover that scar. You will never recover for that. When you hit the bosom of your ancestors, that scar is still there. That trauma is still present. You are fearing all of the wrong things. You are fearing someone that you are equally as powerful as.
Teach.
You are fearing those that are on the same level as you, that hold the same amount of fear with you. If you sneeze too close to them, they will buckle. But you'll take a bobcat home.
Yep. Yes. That part.
We'll pay anything.
So let's do some work while we're here and we're on this app, because our European American friends and family are desperately saying, where are the places where we can talk about this without being obliterated emotionally and psychologically, where I can be held well, okay? Because I'm on tour to spark that. Why? Recognizing that white people need black people as a contrast. I can't talk about, no, you don't believe you can talk about race because you're walking around being everybody, which is race, which is white supremacy in and of itself. Okay. But you can see yourself in contrast to me. So I'm going around. Okay. So one, my question for the people in Ohio is, when and how can we start having the conversation about what a white person needs to feel safe enough to tell the white supremacists no? Okay? That's really what it gets down to. Yes, I know my uncle is a white supremacist and he has guns. Can there be editorials where you say that, where you talk about, I'm scared of my own family members, they got guns, they get upset, and every time they get upset, I'm scared they're going to shoot me. Where's I think my boss will fire me, and I don't know how I'm going to eat. I do need mutual aid. Where are the lawyers? Literally, European Americans won't even allow themselves to build the way out. Where are the lawyers who are brave enough to risk assassination by challenging the judge? And you got to start talking about, I know what's going on. I see what's going on. I feel impotent because I'm scared they will murder me for trying to not practice white supremacy, because your community is the white supremacy. That's why you're scared. That's why you don't talk about it. That's why, like Chaz says, when it comes to race, that's when I can't make any mistakes. Why? Because I'm going to get killed by these people.
And
that's what it feels like.
Optics. They can't have that conversation because it's the optics. Because your Americans are the same people who look at the marginalized, who's like, I can't speak up. I'm going to have to uncomfortably laugh at this joke because I can't be without a job because I will be homeless. And your Americans are the same ones that go, you're being too sensitive. Why are you doing that? Your Americans are the same ones that talked out the marginalized from openly setting up things for themselves. So right now, the focus is on optics. Perfect example is Governor Holcomb right now. I can't speak out about this because previously I did this. Let me explain something to y'all. We don't give a damn what you did previously. We don't. Just like that one time you broke curfew. Your parents do not care now that you broke curfew. They care, are you breaking the law now? And that's what we care about. What you did before, when you were still on breast milk and Similac, we don't care today now that you're on solid food. Take that solid food, nourish yourself, and get your shit together. Figure out how you can be a support system to one another so we can get towards equity, because guess what? Equity benefits you as well. And as long as we stay trapped in this system of oppression, you are going to keep getting ricochet. You are going to keep getting hit. And eventually you're going to run out of body parts to take the hits. And I don't know if you figured this out or not. We're not being Florence Nightingale anymore.
Teach.
So I hope you know how to work a tourniquet. I hope you know how to stitch each other up. because we've given you the instructions 101 times. But right now, you are stuck in a loop of optics. This is why people keep going back to excuses. The I can't, but what if, but my family, but my this. What do you tell people who are in a domestic violence situation? I will help you. You can get out. We can hide you. Why are you not telling people that are stuck in domestic violence, racial situations, the same thing? You want to tout about the Underground Railroad? Where's the one for you? You
That
want
part.
to talk about all of these great things. You can quote all of these great speeches. We'll take what you learned and put them into action. Christian or not, faith without works is dead, and knowledge without works is beneath the core of the earth. You can garner all of the knowledge, the quotes, the pictures, the books, the sermons, the classes that you want. But if you don't build a strong foundation and a good house on top of it, you are blowing in the wind and you are no good to any of us. Just like the tumbleweed, eventually you will disintegrate. Who does that help?
Heretic, I got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Right? I know you're coming in because I know you and I know where you're coming from when it comes down to habits. But here's my question. Why do you imagine that our European American friends and family have such a hard time connecting to each other?
Because they never had the connection to begin with. You have to understand that before colonialization, there was culture in Western European countries, regardless of how it expanded or to whatever degree. That all got substituted for whiteness. Once whiteness was introduced, culture, community all went down the tubes. As far as in this country, that translates into capitalism, which leads me to a thought, and I'm piggybacking off of what Taz is talking about.
Man, it's Ramadan, okay? You're cow bagging or you're hijacking or you're doing anything other than pigging, man.
Fair enough. I am going to extend on what Taz is talking about. Is that cool? Is that cool?
Yes, brother, yes.
All right.
This is what happens when the siblings get together.
Right.
You know. But I'm actually going to give an avenue while playing devil's advocate for just a moment.
What devil are you
white-
advocating for?
Okay, he wants to go there. Look in the mirror. Anyway,
You're right. I said it's Ramadan. See? And I told you, see? I tried to. Okay, keep going.
my name is literally right there. Anyway,
And I told you, the siblings. I told y'all.
You set yourself
I am
up.
the younger sibling.
I'm good. I'm here to learn.
I hear you.
You gonna learn today.
yes.
What you say? Oh, you trying to hit home, huh? You just simply say that. You know, look. Calm down.
Now, Pete Gang, what does white supremacy uphold the most?
Individualism.
What? Let me rephrase. What mechanism does white supremacy uphold the most?
Feelings.
Power. It respects power. Here's where the devil's advocacy comes in at. Because when we're talking about white supremacy and those who are of European descent, they want to do something about it, but they don't want to do something because it leads to uncomfortability. Here's how you can be comfortable with it. The overt bigots and racists are actually the minority. There is more of you who want to do something about it than there are the ones who are perpetuating the violence across the board. If you organize with other like-minded white European Americans And I don't care if it's 30 of y'all on one, you're already making a statement. Because then they have to see the power behind of what they're doing is no longer wanted. Because we have to remember, white supremacy is based out of religion. We are at a point that we have outgrown religion. So your comfortability is in numbers, not in the philosophy. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if you want to organize, you can't. It's not about organizing against the government. It's about organizing against the one racist uncle or the dad, whatever. You have to make a statement against that one person. It's like, oh shit, these people ain't playing no more. So if your uncle like, well, I got a this, that, and a 357, I don't care what you got. You try to come for any one of us, you will get got.
If you got to have that level of conversation with them. I honestly believe that as soon as you say, I hear that you have a gun, okay, uncle, it makes sense that you would now get a gun because you're so scared that I don't know what you're scared of, but you're scared. And I would be
Hey,
scared if we were here too. I mean,
but see,
do the judo, do start nonviolent. Don't get it twisted. I'm all for Malcolm. Don't get it twisted. But if you start with Malcolm, then you don't have anything to back down from.
Right.
but see, that's the thing though, because what do white supremacy also use as a mechanism part of that power? It's posturing.
Yeah.
So the posturing of one versus a posturing of 30, the math is
I
right
hear you.
there.
So then you, from what I've taught, then you got to have a
Mhm.
spokesperson. I hear Malcolm now. You got to have a spokesperson who sits there and talks to the uncle, says, you know, we got 30 of us here. Okay. No one wants to touch you. I get why you have a gun. I have a gun too. You got to hear yourself. How would you want to be talked to when you're terrified? You guys are all here. This is my greatest nightmare. There's mob against me. There's public opinion against me. You guys want to hurt me. I'm now justified in shooting everybody. And that's why we have all these mass shootings. Okay?
I'm up to push back against that because mass shootings occur for a whole different dynamic than just simply white supremacy. There's a whole other. Uh,
Well, also we're dealing with generational psychopathy. I mean, Billy the Kid is a serial killer too. We just didn't use the term back then. Okay, so Buffalo Bill. Back to what Taz was saying. I'm gonna take. I didn't need any consent. As soon as the federal government told me to go kill Buffalo, I went and did a serial killer in order to take out all these indigenous people. So what happened is that the civil rights movement interrupted white people giving themselves permission to just kill everything. All right. So that's part of what we're dealing with. Now we're saying we need you to be brave enough to go to your uncle and call out his fear cycle, and tell him this is what I see. And yes, I'm shaking too because I get that you're scared, and I think at the present moment that you're so scared you're going to kill me. That's when he should start crying. Everybody's saying to me, why does everybody think I want to hurt them? I think you guys want to hurt
Well,
me.
not only that, you have to remember to turn their fear on them. And their
Yep.
biggest fear, the biggest fear of white supremacists is having to do the work themselves. Let me explain.
Yep.
When chattel slavery, the parameters of slavery changed and removed it from chattel, they, the amount of children that started to be born per family hit the double digits. Pets, specifically dogs, started being adopted in abundance. Why? Because they want a workforce. This is why you hear so many, specifically Euro-American women, why aren't you having children? Who's going to take care of you in your old age? Euro-American non-deconstructing. I have to have a wife. Who's going to take care of me? Remember when they pull that gun, if you shoot all of us, what nursing home you going to?
Teach.
Who's going to be there when you die? Who's
Teach.
going to hold your hand when you're afraid? Because even though non-deconstructing Euro-Americans don't want to build community, they don't want to be alone because they know they can't survive on their own devices. Remove the semblance of community from them, you remove every weapon they could possibly put their hands on because that is their biggest fear. That is the biggest thing, being alone. If you look at every time we have these conversations and the excuses come, the excuses are always centered around, I might end up alone. Where am I going to go? Who am I going to run to? The devil, for all I care. I don't give a shit. But just let them know you're in a cul-de-sac. This is a dead end. You kill us. Who do you have? Because your homeboys down at the Triple K, they're not taking you in. Them Proud Boys, they're not taking you in. The 3%ers aren't taking you in. And God forbid, don't think a marginalized person is. Absolutely not. Well, not without a check. We'll take you into the garage, okay, for a couple $100s a month. I ain't gonna lie. If you pay bills, I ain't gonna lie to y'all about the black community. We'll take you in.
Man,
You ain't gonna be
listen.
comfortable, but if you pay a price, we'll give you a sheet and a pillow. Okay, you can go. You can stay in the garage with that crazy uncle that we can't let go into the public. That's about it. But that is
Hold up. I wouldn't wish my Uncle John Gibber on nobody.
Hey, my uncle ain't technically an uncle. He's just an older cousin. And Lord Jesus, after his therapist receptionist called me, I was like, sir, I know I can't go out in the public by myself, but damn, you raised the ante. Come on. We don't just get you supervision at home. Don't even go out and get the mail. You just watch TV, Norman. That's what you gonna do. Okay?
Correct.
Don't
Correct. Man, he could. My other uncles wouldn't let that man go out in public. He could go to work and come home, and any other time when he needed to go groceries, they went with him. Okay, people, y'all don't understand, dude. The black community be taking care of their own because we know
my crazy uncle literally looks at me and goes, "We got to keep an eye on you." Sir, you can take all 25 pair of my glasses, put them on your face, and look in the mirror. That's who needs to have an eye kept on them. Leave me alone.
Oh, I hear you. Oh, all day. All right, beautiful people. We're at the limit of what I give out for free. Okay. We really need our European American friends and family to begin acting. It is safe for you to send Heretic $25, Taz $25, Royal Star $25. It is safe for you to take a class. It is safe for you to to buy a book. It is safe for you to connect to Chris Pratt in Two-Tone in Florida, to connect to Vix in Ohio. It is safe for you to contact the tour organizers and say, hey, I would like to participate, and I'm scared on this level, scared on this level, scared on that level, and they will begin helping you systematically get out into a place where you can say, I don't want to participate in white supremacy. I am on tour. We will be in Des Moines, Washington, which is it's only like 28% white, so it's like a mini Anchorage. We'll be in Canton, Ohio. All right. We're looking to tour and come around, but we got to do so with resources and with those who are brave enough. Okay, we've got a Substack. We've got Substacks, and our Substack subscription is $8. Y'all stop tripping about I don't have any money. Then you can. It's Ramadan. Don't drink a coffee at the coffee house for 2 days. You can do this, and you can afford a subscription. Okay, we have guidance, but what we don't have is where is the retail behavior from our European American friends and family to begin organizing themselves. We can lay out the products, we can lay out the opportunities, we can lay out the offers, but you have to act and choose to come to us. Period. Okay? Period.
If you're uncomfortable with participating in the lives that we do and you just come and watch, let me reiterate, I do have open discussions for you. Come, chat, listen if you want to. Take the questions that are thrown out, journal with them, sit with them, do whatever. And sometimes, if you get lucky, sometimes you do, you might end up with like 30 minutes with just me by myself. I don't bite all the time, hard. I do bite a little bit, but you'll like it. It'll be fine.
Look,
Before y'all leave.
Hey, I'm a black man. You can't be saying shit like that. You tell me that
There's
you
a
bite.
reason why
I
she's
like that.
called Taz.
Don't say
There's
stuff
a
like that.
reason
Where's
why
chaos?
she's called Taz.
Where is Chaos King?
Wednesday on the podcast, Royal Star will be with me for our first our opening session of Wisdom Wednesdays, which happens once a month. So, yeah, join us.
Also, if you want to join Eager, send me a message. We'll get you hooked up and in our signal chats so that you can start deconstructing with other European Americans and be in a safe space where you can talk about this stuff to give you confidence to start talking about it openly. So,
And it is okay. It is okay. If I don't say anything else to y'all, it is okay. Because you can't wait for a safe space, quote unquote, to appear for you. You have to create one.
Teach.
You cannot wait for change. My brother taught me this lesson a long time ago. You cannot wait for change to happen. And because even if it does happen, it's not always going to play in your favor. You have to create that change for yourself, and you cannot be afraid to create said change. Because what kind of example are you going to set for your children and their children if you wait for it to happen? It's okay.
It is okay. And if you catch me on the right day, I might hold your hand for 5 minutes if you bribe me with Reese cups.
See, snacks.
No,
See,
no,
look
okay.
here, black
You know
woman.
what?
Oh, we got another snacks. Y'all love
Taz.
snacks. Come with a bag of snacks.
Taz, we've already had this conversation about Reese's cups, okay? We've
Okay,
already
see?
had this conversation.
But you know what? On my way back from Chicago, I had to stop in Indianapolis, and would I call my uncle and have him meet me to bring me Reese cups because I was running low? Absolutely.
Of course. That's what uncles do. That's what uncles do. My niece,
thank you
but
all
we'll
so
get into
much.
it. Okay, peace.
Thank you all so
Yep.
much for being here. We appreciate you.
Thank you
And
all.
like I said, reach out to
you all.
Taz, reach out to Royal Star, reach out to Heretic, reach out to me or Two Tone, and let us know what it is that you need in order to be brave enough to talk about this stuff in your life. So thanks again, all of you, for being here. Appreciate you.
Thank
I'm
y'all.
not joking about being bribed by Reese cups. I really am. Go ahead.
Donate to South